All right, president of Strelmark and Business Development Consultants, Hillary Fordwich, joining me right now. Hillary, it's good to see you. What do you make of Starmer's arguments today about trying to keep the United States involved, maybe keeping the conflict going between Ukraine and Russia, and security guarantees and all that? Do you think he moved the needle at all with the president?
Pleasure to be back with you, Chris. A few things here. I think what's so important is that Keir Starmer is basically out of his depth. We have a phenomenal president in President Trump. And given that the Ukraine has 5% of the world's most critical earth minerals, President Trump is doing a great deal. So I think Keir Starmer was doing everything he possibly could to butter up President Trump, to offer him that state visit and trying to get as much out of this as he could. And I think actually probably it will just end up being the best for the Ukraine and the best for the US. So I don't think that President Trump lost ground here at all. I think they both came out looking very good, Chris.
Right. And before I get on to what J.D. Vance had to say to the Prime Minister of Great Britain, I did want to just get your temperature on, look, I think the capitals of Europe, in particular the United Kingdom, they have some chutzpah, basically asking the United States to pay for their defense umbrella while they take their taxpayer dollars and use it to oppress the free speech and the freedoms of their own people. As an American, do I just have American bias here, or do you think there's a real issue over there in Europe with people losing their rights and their freedoms?
Well, first of all, you're totally and utterly right about that. In the UK, do you know that there are more arrests for people's posts on Facebook than there even are in Russia, which is the former Soviet Union, which is absolutely ghastly. And also, Chris, you're not out of line at all. Let me tell you, as someone who was born in England, you can tell from my accent, grew up in Surrey, where Keir Starmer actually grew up. But a few things here. Could you even imagine, Chris, asking the British taxpayer, the French taxpayer, the German taxpayer, or the Dutch taxpayer, by the way, we want you to now defend the US southern border and northern border? They'd be up in arms. They wouldn't even consider it. Why are we as American taxpayers bloody well funding all of their defense? Let them step up. And by the way, I think President Trump is absolutely fabulous in saying pay 5%. They should pay at a minimum 5%, Chris. Donald Trump is totally right. President Trump is correct.
Yeah, and if they spent money on defense, maybe they wouldn't have all this money to oppress their own people. That's also a plus. J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States, confronting Mr. Starmer on the UK's suppression of free speech. This not only puts British citizens, he said, in harm's way, but also Americans doing business in the UK. I think the VP is right.
Yes, he absolutely is. And by the way, let's also bring in Elon Musk here. When he referred to Keir Starmer as two-tier Keir, there is, Chris, a two-tier level of policing in the UK, which is ghastly to see. I mean, obviously, in the home, supposedly, of freedom of speech, this is something that the British have touted for centuries, the very home of democracy. And I will say this. You look at what happened with regard to those Southport murders, that the people that were actually bringing attention to what had actually happened were imprisoned. They were actually called right-wing extremists. And actually, another thing that came out of that press conference today, Chris, was when the reporter asked about the BBC actually taking money for and suppressing what was actually happening in the Middle East. The BBC, where the British taxpayer pays to fund them like we give money to NPR, they are the Brit bashing corporation. I urge Americans instead to look at GB. Like the Newsmax of the UK.
Brit bashing company. I like that. And you know what? I was watching, I think it was Senator Kennedy saying that the U.S. taxpayers have no business subsidizing media of any kind, NPR, public radio, any of that kind of stuff. And folks, look at what's happening in the UK. It's ruining them. We should turn around and stop it right here. Hillary Fordwich, thank you very much. Appreciate the visit as always. Come back soon.